The mountains of the Northern Territories held their secrets close. Snow clung to ancient pines, and wind carved patterns in the drifts that surrounded Castle Ashcroft like frozen sentinels. From the infirmary's frost-edged windows, Nora Blackwood could see wolves running patrol along the outer walls. Their breath steamed in the pre-dawn cold, their movements precise as any military formation she had ever witnessed. She had seen enough military formations to know the difference between discipline and desperation. The castle smelled of stone and wood smoke, and something wilder, something that made the small hairs on her arms stand up even after 3 months of living within these walls. The scent of wolves, of predators who tolerated humans only because utility outweighed contempt. Nora kept her head down, her hands steady, and her daughter close. The same rules that had kept her alive on forward operating bases applied here. Know your place, do your job, draw no attention. But Arya made that last rule impossible. Her daughter sat now at the infirmary's corner table, supposedly organizing bandages. Instead, she was drawing. Again. The child's small hands moved with unsettling certainty across the paper, sketching a woman's face. The same woman she had been drawing for weeks. Fair hair, sad eyes, a smile that held both warmth and sorrow. "Mama, the Silver Lady came again last night," Arya said without looking up. Her voice carried that distant quality it took on when she talked about her visions. "She said we're almost home. She said you'll remember soon." Nora's hands stilled over the inventory sheet she had been updating. The old fear crawled up her spine. The same fear that made her move 3 times in Arya's short life. The same fear that made her take work in a castle full of wolves despite every instinct screaming to run the other direction. Because running required money, and winter in the territories killed the poor first. "Sweetheart, we talk it about this," Nora said quietly, moving to kneel beside her daughter. "The Silver Lady is just dreams, your imagination." Arya finally looked up. Her eyes were too old for 6 years, had been since birth. Sometimes Nora caught her daughter looking at her with an expression of profound sadness, as if Arya mourned something Nora could not remember losing. "She's not imagination, Mama. She's real, like you're real, like the wolves are real." Arya touched the paper, her small finger tracing the woman's cheek. "She says her name is Serafina. She says you knew her once." The name meant nothing. Nora had no memory of anyone named Serafina. But the way Arya said it, with such certainty, such grief, made Nora's chest ache. "Baby, I need you to stop talking about the Silver Lady when others are around. Okay?" Nora kept her voice gentle but firm. "People don't understand. They might think you're different." "I am different." Arya stated it as simple fact. "I can taste lies. I can see things that haven't happened yet. I know when people are going to die." She tilted her head, studying her mother. "You're different too. You just don't remember." Before Nora could respond, the infirmary door slammed open. 2 guards carried a third between them, his leg torn and bleeding. The scent of copper filled the air. Nora shifted instantly into the mode that had kept her sane through 3 tours as a combat nurse. The world narrowed to the injury, the treatment, the steps required to save a life. "Table! Now!" Her voice carried command learned under fire. The guards obeyed without question, laying their wounded companion on the examination table. Nora was already scrubbing her hands, cataloging the damage. Deep lacerations, possible arterial bleeding. He was already shocky, skin pale and clammy. "What happened?" she asked, cutting away the shredded pant leg. "Training accident," one guard muttered, but his eyes slid away. Lies tasted like copper, Arya had once told her. Nora had learned to read them a different way. Body language, tells, the way men looked everywhere except at what they wanted to hide. This wasn't training. Nora applied pressure to the wound, felt the pulse of arterial blood against her palm. "This is a bite, from something with a jaw span larger than a wolf." The guards exchanged glances. The wounded one gritted his teeth against the pain. "Rogue. Crossed the border last night. We took him down, but Logan got tagged." Nora worked in focused silence, irrigating the wound, checking for foreign material. The bite had missed the major vessels, but had torn muscle badly. She could save the leg. Probably. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, stitching layers of tissue, monitoring vitals, administering antibiotics from the limited supplies she had bullied the quartermaster into providing. Arya watched from her corner, silent and still. When Nora glanced her way, her daughter's eyes glowed faintly amber in the dim light. The color drained away so quickly Nora almost convinced herself she had imagined it. Almost. 40 minutes later, Logan was stabilized, his leg wrapped and elevated, IV fluids running. The other guards had left with orders to return for observation in 6 hours. Nora stripped off her gloves and washed up, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline crash hit hard. It always did. "You saved him," Arya said softly. "I did my job. It was more than that." Her daughter slipped off her chair and came to stand beside her. "You went away when you work. Somewhere inside. Somewhere the hurt can't reach you. Too perceptive. Far too perceptive. It's called compartmentalization, baby. It's what you do when you need to function despite being scared. Were you scared a lot when Papa was alive?" The question drove into Nora's heart like a blade. James. God, she had loved him. Loved the gentle man who had held her through nightmares, who had made her laugh, who had been so broken by war that he had eaten his service pistol 6 months before Arya was born. "Yes," Nora whispered. "I was scared a lot." Arya wrapped small arms around her waist. "The Silver Lady says Papa is at peace now. She says he knows you did everything you could." Nora held her daughter and did not let herself cry. She had learned that too, how to hurt without showing it, how to carry grief like stones in her pockets, heavy, hidden, constant. The dawn bell rang across the castle grounds. Time for shift change. Time for the day's careful navigation of pack hierarchy and human invisibility. Nora pulled on her practical coat, tucked Arya's drawings into her bag, and prepared to face another day of being nothing. But Arya paused at the door, her hand on the frame, her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. When she looked back at her mother, her eyes were ancient. "Mama, something's changing, something big. The Silver Lady says the shadows are breaking. She says today is the beginning." "The beginning of what?" Arya smiled, sad and knowing. "Of remembering." The castle's military precision had surprised Nora when she first arrived. She had expected medieval chaos, dark passages, mysterious chambers. Instead, she found a facility run with the efficiency of a forward operating base. Guard rotations followed strict schedules. Supply inventories were maintained with quartermaster exactitude. Even the servants moved through their duties with coordinated timing. At the center of that precision was Commander Rowan Steele. Nora had first seen him during her initial interview, head of the Royal Guard, former Special Operations, the kind of man whose presence changed the air pressure in a room. He had reviewed her credentials with sharp intelligence, asked questions that proved he actually read her service record, and approved her placement in the infirmary with a single nod. "We need competence," he had said, "not deference. If you can do the job, I don't care if you're human." That had been 3 months ago. Since then, their interactions had been professional, cordial. He requisitioned supplies when she needed them. She treated his guards when training got rough. They operated in parallel orbits, close but not touching. Until this morning, Nora was checking on Logan when alarms blared through the castle. Not the melodic bells that marked time, sharp, urgent klaxons that made her combat reflexes snap to attention. She moved to the window. In the courtyard below, guards were mobilizing, full gear, weapons ready, moving with the controlled urgency of troops deploying to contact. The infirmary door opened. Commander Steele filled the frame. He wore tactical blacks, knives and sidearm visible, radio at his shoulder. His eyes swept the room, cataloging Logan's condition, Arya's presence, Nora's readiness. "Drill," he said. "Simulated rogue incursion. Eastern perimeter breach scenario." His gaze fixed on Nora. "Keep the infirmary prepped. If this were real, we'd have casualties incoming within 20 minutes. Understood." Nora was already moving, checking supply stations, clearing workspace. Her hands knew the rhythm. Set up triage. Prepare for mass casualties. Focus on what you could control. Rowan paused. "You've done this before. Combat Support Hospital, Kandahar Ramadi, the DMZ." Nora met his eyes. "I know what 20 minutes warning feels like." Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or respect. "Then you know we practice because lives depend on it." He turned to leave, but Nora's voice stopped him. "Commander?" "Ma'am? Your eastern approach has a weakness. If I were planning an assault, I wouldn't breach the wall. I'd feint there and hit the armory. Your supplies are more valuable than your defenses." Silence stretched. Rowan turned slowly. His eyes had gone cold and calculating. Dangerous. "And how would you know the armory's location?" Because it's where I'd put it. Central position, reinforced structure, limited access points. Nora kept her voice level. Professional. Detached. The way she spoke in tactical briefings when lives depended on accuracy. Same reason I'd stage the real attack from the river approach during shift change when guard rotations are transitioning. Maximum confusion, minimum coverage, basic military strategy. Viet Cong used the same approach in Vietnam. They'd hit supply lines, not strong points, make you weak before they make you bleed. That's classified tactical information. That's observable facility design combined with historical precedent. Nora moved to the window, pointed. Your eastern wall is reinforced, triple guard coverage, obvious defensive priority, which means it's probably a feint. Real value is elsewhere. I see supply deliveries going to that central building 3 times weekly. Heavy crates, armed escorts, that's your armory. And your shift change creates a 3-minute window every 6 hours where coverage overlaps inefficiently. Either tighten the rotation or stagger it so you never have a gap in readiness. Rowan studied her for a long moment. Combat assessment happening behind those sharp eyes. He was measuring her, evaluating whether she was threat or asset. Finally, he lifted his radio. Lissa, pull 3rd platoon from eastern wall, redeploy to armory perimeter, and tighten shift rotation to 2-minute window maximum. The radio crackled. A female voice, sharp and professional, responded. Sir, we're mid-drill. That changes the scenario parameters. The exercise was designed for eastern breach response. That's the point. Enemy doesn't care about our parameters. Enemy finds the weakness we didn't know existed and exploits it. Adjust and execute. Rowan's voice carried the authority of someone who had learned these lessons through blood and failure. Who knew that training unrealistic scenarios got people killed in real combat? Copy that, Commander. 3rd platoon redeploying now. Rowan lowered the radio. When he looked back at Nora, something fundamental had shifted in his expression. The professional distance remained, but was underlaid with something else. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You just rewrote my training exercise in real time, identified a vulnerability I've been defending for 2 years without seeing. You asked me what I saw, I told you. Most people see a castle. Some see wolves. You see tactical weaknesses and strategic vulnerability points. You see fields of fire and supply line dependencies. He moved closer, not threatening, interested. That's not normal nursing background, even combat nursing. I learned to think like the threat. It kept my patients alive. Nora's hands stilled on the bandages she had been organizing. Her voice went quieter. You deploy to enough hot zones, you start seeing the world as one big target analysis. Every building is potential cover or kill zone. Every crowd is possible ambush. Every routine is exploitable pattern. It becomes automatic, the way your brain compensates for trauma by staying in threat assessment mode even when you're safe. PTSD. Situational awareness, Nora corrected, but her jaw tightened. Because yes, PTSD, hypervigilance, the inability to turn off combat mode, all the invisible scars that made sleep difficult and silence unbearable. Functional paranoia, my therapist called it. Useful in war zones, less useful in civilian life. Makes it hard to trust that you're actually safe, that the danger isn't coming, that you can relax without dying. Rowan noticed the tension. Of course he noticed. Men like him were trained to read micro-expressions and body language, to see what people tried to hide. I have night terrors, he said simply. Voice matter of fact, offering vulnerability as trade, soldier-to-soldier acknowledgement of shared damage. From the Wolf Wars 30 years ago, still wake up swinging sometimes. Broke a nightstand last month during an episode. Scared the hell out of my aide when he came to check on me. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Nora recognized the gesture for what it was, not confession-seeking absolution, but connection. The way veterans acknowledged each other's wounds without demanding details or offering empty platitudes. Does it get better? She asked. It gets different. Rowan's expression softened slightly, became less commander and more human. You learn to carry it, find purpose that makes the wait worthwhile, build routines that minimize triggers, surround yourself with people who understand that some scars don't show, and you accept that some nights will be harder than others, that progress isn't linear, that healing from war happens in inches, not miles. Before Nora could respond, Arya made a small sound. Not pain, not fear, something stranger. Her daughter stood frozen at the window, her small body rigid, her eyes wide and unfocused. "Arya?" Nora moved to her side, medical instinct overriding everything else. "Baby, what's wrong?" "Dark wolves," Arya whispered. Her voice had gone distant, hollow. "Coming from the mountains, seeking the lost crown, seeking the one who was hidden." Her eyes rolled back. "They're looking for someone here." Then she collapsed. Nora caught her daughter, lowering her gently to the floor, checking airway, breathing, circulation. Arya's pulse was rapid but strong, her breathing shallow but steady. Nora had seen this before, 3 times now. Seizures, the human doctors had called them. But Nora knew better. These weren't seizures. They were something else entirely. Rowan knelt beside them, his radio already lifted. "Medical emergency, infirmary, child, age 6, possible seizure. Get me a healer, now." "No healers," Nora said sharply. "No wolves examining her. Just give her space. She needs medical attention." "She needs time." Nora cradled Arya's head in her lap, stroking her daughter's hair. "This passes. It always passes." "This has happened before?" 3 times. The doctors couldn't explain it, called it idiopathic epilepsy, prescribed medications that did nothing. Nora's voice cracked slightly. "She has visions, sees things that haven't happened yet. I thought it was just dreams, children's imagination, but the things she sees, they come true." Rowan went very still. "What did you just say?" "She sees the future, or possible futures. I don't know how. I don't know why." Nora looked up at him, and for the first time in months, she let someone see past her armor. "Please don't take her from me. That's why we keep moving, why I took work here despite the risk. If people know what she can do, they'll use her, study her, turn her into a weapon." "Prophetic sight." Rowan's voice had gone quiet. "Careful. That's an alpha bloodline gift, rare even among pure wolves. It requires specific genetics, ancient lineages. She's human, I'm human, her father was human. There's no wolf blood in our family." "Then how do you explain what just happened?" Nora had no answer. She held her daughter and felt the fear rising like floodwater. This was why she ran, why she hid, because questions led to investigations, and investigations led to separations, and she would burn the world before she let anyone take Arya from her. In her arms, Arya stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. The amber glow had faded back to normal green. She looked up at her mother with heartbreaking clarity. "I saw them, Mama. The dark wolves. They're coming for the lost princess. They think she's still here." Arya's small hand touched Nora's cheek. They don't know she changed her face. "Baby, you're not making sense." "Not me." Arya's eyes filled with tears. "You." Before Nora could process that, the infirmary door opened. A wolf entered. Not a guard, not a servant. The presence that preceded him made even Rowan straighten to attention. Theron Ashcroft, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. He was 62, but looked ageless in the way old soldiers did. Scars told his story better than words. His hair was iron gray, pulled back severely. His eyes were amber but harder than stone. He wore simple blacks, no crown, no ceremonial regalia. He did not need symbols of authority. Authority radiated from him like heat from forge. This was a man who had survived the wolf wars, who had held territory through force and cunning, who ruled not through love but through the kind of respect that bordered on fear. Nora had seen him from a distance. Never close, never directly. Servants did not meet the Alpha King's eyes, did not speak unless spoken to, did not exist except as function. But now he was looking at her daughter with an expression Nora could not read. "Commander Steele," Theron said without taking his eyes off Arya. "Report. Child collapsed during training drill, Your Majesty. Possible prophetic episode. She spoke of dark wolves seeking a lost crown." Rowan's voice carried military precision. "The human woman claims this has happened before." "The human woman has a name," Nora said before she could stop herself. "And I'm right here." Amber eyes shifted to her. The weight of that gaze made her want to shrink back. But she had faced down Taliban fighters and insurgent ambushes. She would not cower before a wolf, alpha or not. "Your name?" Theron asked. "Nora Blackwood. This is my daughter Arya. We work in the infirmary." "I know who you are." Theron moved closer, his movements fluid despite his age. Predatory. I review all human employment applications personally. Former combat nurse, decorated for valor under fire, widowed, single mother. References spoke of competence and discretion. He knelt before Arya, bringing himself to her level. The child should have been terrified. Instead, she studied him with that unnerving directness. "Hello, little one," Theron said gently. "What did you see?" "Wolves with dark fur and darker hearts. They're searching, hunting. They want something they lost a long time ago." Arya tilted her head. "You lost it too, but you don't want it anymore. You want the pain to stop." Theron inhaled sharply. For just a moment, the iron control cracked. Grief flashed across his features, raw and terrible. Then it was gone, buried beneath alpha discipline. "What else did you see?" His voice had roughened. "A woman, silver and moonlight. She's sleeping but not sleeping, waiting but not waiting." Arya's eyes filled with that strange amber glow again. "She's waking up now. The spell is breaking. Soon everyone will see." Theron stood abruptly. When he looked at Nora, his expression had shifted to something harder, more dangerous. "Come with me. Both of you. Now." "Your Majesty, my daughter needs rest after an episode like this," Nora began. "That wasn't an episode. That was prophecy. And if what she saw is true, then you both are in more danger than you realize." Theron's eyes bored into hers. "Your daughter has prophetic sight, a gift that appears once every 3 or 4 generations among alpha bloodlines, a gift that requires specific genetics to manifest. We're human, are you?" Theron moved to the window, looking out over the mountains. 30 years ago, I lost my mate, my Luna. She disappeared in the night, pregnant with twins. We found evidence of an attack, blood, torn clothing. All signs pointed to rogue wolves killing her. We searched for months, found nothing. Eventually, I accepted she was dead. Both children dead. The bloodline ended. He turned back. The grief in his eyes was old, weathered, but no less painful for its age. But if those children survived, if someone had hidden them, changed them, made them forget what they were. Theron's voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. They might grow up thinking they were human, might live entire lives never knowing what blood truly ran in their veins, until the magic started breaking down, until the truth began to surface. Nora's heart hammered. "You think That's impossible. I remember my childhood, my mother, my life." "Do you?" Theron asked softly. "Or do you remember what the spell wanted you to remember?" "This is insane." "Then explain your daughter's prophetic sight. Explain why she speaks of a silver lady who visits her dreams. Explain why she drew this." He produced a piece of paper from his coat. Arya's drawing. The woman with sad eyes and fair hair. Nora's breath caught. "How did you—" "The servants talk about the strange child who draws the same woman over and over. I had them bring me her artwork." Theron held up the drawing. "This is Seraphina, my Luna, dead 30 years. So how does your daughter know her face?" Silence fell like snow, heavy, suffocating. Arya spoke into that silence, her voice small and certain. "Because she visits. She tells me stories. She says Mama doesn't remember but will soon. She says you've been alone for so long. She says she's sorry." Theron's hand trembled slightly as he lowered the drawing. "I need you to come with me. There's something you need to see. Please." The pleas cracked through Nora's defenses. This Alpha King, this warrior who ruled through strength, was asking, not commanding, asking. Against every survival instinct, Nora nodded. They followed Theron through corridors Nora had only cleaned, never walked. Rowan came too, a silent guardian presence. The castle revealed itself in layers. Working spaces gave way to formal halls. Formal halls gave way to private quarters. They climbed stairs that seemed to spiral endlessly upward. Finally, they reached a gallery, long and narrow, lit by tall windows that looked out over the mountains. Late afternoon sun streamed through the glass, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. Portraits lined the walls on both sides, stretching back into dimness. Generations upon generations of pack leadership immortalized in oil and canvas. Alphas stretching back what must have been centuries. Warriors and leaders, each more imposing than the last. The earliest portraits showed primitive figures in animal skins, then medieval armor, Renaissance clothing, Victorian finery, modern dress. A visual timeline of pack evolution told through faces that shared certain features across the centuries. The strong jaw, the intense eyes, the bearing of those born to command. The room smelled of old varnish and linseed oil, of history and power and secrets kept for longer than human lifetimes. This was sacred space. Pack memory made tangible. The kind of place where ordinary wolves did not tread without permission. But at the far end, separated from the others by deliberate spacing, hung a portrait that stood apart in every way. Smaller than the imposing alpha portraits, more intimate in composition. A woman in a simple dress, no ceremonial regalia or crown. Fair hair catching lamplight despite being merely painted representation. Eyes that seemed to look directly at the viewer with an expression that held sadness and strength in equal measure. Vulnerability and steel. The kind of face that promised both gentleness and unbreakable will. Nora stopped breathing, because the woman in the portrait had her face. Not similar, not reminiscent, not the kind of family resemblance that shows distant relation. Identical. The same curve of jaw, the same shape of eyes, the same small scar at the left temple from a childhood fall Nora had always remembered suffering at age 7 when she climbed too high in the old oak tree behind the village healer's cottage. She could remember her mother tending the wound, could remember the sting of antiseptic and the feeling of small hands trembling while Helena stitched the cut closed with expert precision. But how could a woman who died 30 years before Nora was born have the same childhood scar? "That's me," she whispered. Her voice sounded distant, hollow, like it belonged to someone else. "That's my face." "That's Serafina," Theron corrected. His voice had gone rough with emotion, barely controlled. "My mate, painted from memory after she disappeared. The artist worked from my descriptions, from what I remembered of her. I sat for hours describing every detail, every feature, the exact shade of her hair, the way her eyes reflected light, that small scar she got falling from a horse when she was young. Falling from a horse, not a tree, but the same temple, the same placement, as if reality itself was fragmenting. Arya slipped past Nora and walked to the portrait. She reached up, small fingers touching the painted surface gently. "Hello again, Silver Lady." Rowan made a low sound. "Your Majesty, I don't understand what I'm seeing." "Neither do I." Theron moved to stand beside the portrait. Serafina was 26 when she vanished. This woman, Nora. How old are you? 26, Nora heard herself say. "And your mother?" "Died 2 years ago. Her name was Nora Blackwood. She raised me alone. Never talked about my father. Never talked about where we came from before settling in the border territories." The words came automatically while her mind screamed impossibilities. Theron pulled something from his pocket. A locket. Silver and delicate. He opened it to reveal a pressed flower, purple petals preserved behind glass. "I gave this to Serafina the night I proposed. Wolf's bane, poisonous to our kind but beautiful. I told her even things the world feared had purpose, had value." He held it out. Nora's hand moved to her own throat, to the locket she always wore, the one her mother had given her with dying breath. "Never take this off," Helena had whispered. "Never forget where you came from, even if you can't remember." With trembling fingers, Nora opened her locket. Inside, preserved between glass, was a pressed flower. Purple petals, identical. "No," Nora breathed. "No, this can't be." "There are tests," Rowan said quietly. "Blood work, genetic markers, we can verify." But Arya was shaking her head. "No tests needed. The Silver Lady already told me. Mama is Serafina. She just doesn't remember being her." The world tilted. Nora grabbed the wall for support. "That's impossible. I'm not a wolf. I can't shift. I have no alpha abilities. I'm human." "Are you?" Theron's eyes burned into hers. "Or is that what the spell made you believe?" A door opened at the gallery's far end. An elderly man entered. Priest's robes. Kind eyes behind wire spectacles. He looked at Nora and his expression crumbled into shock. "Dear God," he whispered. "Serafina, you came back." "Father Tobias," Theron said. "You know something. Tell me." The old priest moved closer, his eyes never leaving Nora's face. 30 years ago, Luna Serafina came to me in secret. She was terrified, said powerful people wanted her dead, wanted the children she carried dead. She begged me to help her. "What did you do?" Theron's voice could have cut steel. I gave her access to the forbidden archives, to old magic, spells that hadn't been attempted in centuries." Father Tobias's hands shook. There was a ritual, one that could hide someone completely, change their appearance, suppress their wolf nature, erase memories and create new ones, make them believe they were someone else entirely. "You helped her run," Theron said flatly. "I helped her survive." The priest met the Alpha King's eyes without flinching. "She came to me with evidence, records of council meetings, plans to stage an accident, to eliminate the human Luna and her half-blood children before they could weaken the bloodline. She had names, dates, detailed plots." Theron's fists clenched. "Who?" "Council members, high-ranking wolves, people you trusted." Father Tobias pulled out a leather journal, old and worn. "She left this with me, evidence, testimony, everything she discovered. She made me promise to keep it secret until the time was right." He held out the journal. Theron took it with hands that trembled with barely suppressed rage. He opened it, read. His expression went from stone to fury to something that looked like anguish. "They were going to kill her," he breathed. "My own council, people I fought beside in the wars. They plotted to murder my pregnant mate and make it look like a rogue attack. She couldn't trust anyone," Father Tobias continued. "Not even you. She feared you were compromised, watched. That if she came to you, they'd strike immediately." He looked at Nora. "So she made the hardest choice. She erased herself, became someone new, someone they'd never find." Nora's knees gave out. She sank to the floor, the locket clutched in her hand. "My mother, Helena, she told me stories about loving someone too much, about having to choose between love and survival. I thought—" She couldn't finish. Arya knelt beside her. "The Silver Lady says it's okay, Mama. She says you did what you had to do. She says she's proud of you." "This doesn't make sense," Nora managed. "If I'm Seraphina, where are the memories? Why don't I remember any of this?" "The spell," Father Tobias said gently. "It was designed to be permanent, to completely overwrite who you were with, who you needed to be. But magic has limits, and apparently—" He looked at Arya. "Apparently, the children survived. At least one did." Theron's head snapped up. "Children, plural. Seraphina was carrying twins." "Yes." Father Tobias pulled out another document. Birth records, sealed with wax, 30 years old. "Twin girls, born the night before Seraphina disappeared. I was there, delivered them myself." "What happened to them?" Theron's voice cracked. "One was stillborn. I buried her in the private cemetery with full rights." The priest's eyes went to Arya. "The other, I gave to Seraphina. She took the living child and fled, cast the spell on herself, became Helena Blackwood, raised her daughter as human." "Then Arya can't be that child," Rowan said quietly. "The timeline doesn't match. That baby would be 30 years old now, not 6. Father Tobias smiled sadly. "Unless the spell didn't just hide Seraphina, unless it froze the child as well, kept her in stasis, waiting until the magic broke and she could age naturally." They all looked at Arya, the little girl who was too perceptive, too knowing, who had eyes that were ancient despite her small face. "I remember," Arya whispered. "I remember being born. I remember Mama crying as she held me. I remember going to sleep for a very long time, and when I woke up—" She looked at Nora. "When I woke up, you didn't know me anymore. But I knew you. I've always known you." Nora pulled her daughter who was 30 years old, frozen as a child by magic she couldn't comprehend, pulled her close and held on. The world was breaking apart. Everything she knew was a lie. Everything she believed was crumbling. "I don't remember," she said through tears. "I don't remember being Seraphina. I don't remember you." She looked at Theron. "I don't remember any of this." Theron knelt before her. This Alpha King, this warrior. His eyes held decades of grief and a desperate, fragile hope. "Then let me help you remember. Let me tell you who you were, who we were, before they took it from us." He reached out slowly, giving her time to refuse. His hand touched her cheek, and in that contact, something flickered, a flash of memory. A man's face younger, less scarred, a laugh, a kiss in moonlight, a feeling of safety so profound it had felt like coming home. Then it was gone. "I can't," Nora whispered. "I can't be who you want me to be. I'm not her anymore." "I know." Theron's voice broke. "I can see that. You're someone new, someone she became to survive." His thumb brushed away her tears. But you're still my daughter in some form, still carry the bloodline that makes Arya possible, still part of this pack whether you remember it or not. Your Majesty, Rowan said carefully, if this is true, if Nora is Serafina under a spell, and if Arya is the heir, the council members who plotted against them 30 years ago, are they still here? Theron stood. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of pack law and alpha authority. Father Tobias, the names in that journal, are any of those wolves still alive? The priest consulted the book. His face went grim. 3 of the 5 conspirators still live, still hold positions of power, still sit on your council. Then they're about to learn, Theron said quietly, that some sins echo across decades, some debts come due regardless of time past. He looked at Rowan. Double the guard on Nora and Arya. No one approaches them without my direct authorization. As of this moment, they are under my personal protection. And if the council objects? Rowan asked. Let them. Theron's eyes blazed. I've been alone for 30 years, made compromises, played politics, ruled through cold calculation instead of conviction. But if they think I'll let them finish what they started 3 decades ago, he smiled. It was not kind. They're about to remember why I'm called the Iron King. Nora looked up at this man who claimed to be her mate, who carried grief like armor, who was offering protection she hadn't asked for but desperately needed. What happens now? Now? Theron extended his hand. Now I introduce you to the pack. Tell them my Luna has returned, that my heir lives, and we let the conspiracy reveal itself. His eyes hardened. Because people who tried to kill you once will try again, and this time I'll be ready. Nora took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. Beside her, Arya held the locket, studying the wolf's bane flower within. Outside the gallery windows, storm clouds gathered over the mountains, dark and heavy with coming snow. Somewhere in those mountains, if Arya's vision was true, dark wolves were searching, hunting, coming for the lost princess they thought was still hidden. They didn't know she had already been found, and this time she wasn't alone. This time she had an alpha king willing to go to war to protect her, even if she couldn't remember why she deserved that protection. Even if the woman he loved had died 30 years ago and left only echoes wearing a stranger's face. The storm was coming, both the one outside and the one waiting within these castle walls. And Nora Blackwood, who might have once been Serafina Moonwhisper, who might have once been Luna, who might have once loved this scarred wolf standing beside her, had no choice but to face it. Because running hadn't saved her mother, and it wouldn't save her daughter. So she would stand, she would fight, and she would remember, even if remembering destroyed the person she had become. The great hall filled with wolves before dawn, hundreds of them, pack members summoned by Alpha Command, gathering in the massive space with breath-creating fog and cold morning air. Their eyes reflected lamplight in shades of amber and gold and green, the scent of anticipation mixed with suspicion, with fear, with curiosity about why the Alpha King had called emergency assembly. Nora stood behind the heavy curtain separating preparation alcove from hall proper. Her hands shook despite best efforts at control. Arya pressed against her side, small and warm, and far too calm for a child about to be presented as heir to hundreds of predators. "You don't have to be afraid, Mama," Arya whispered. "The Silver Lady says they'll accept us, eventually." Eventually was not comforting. Rowan appeared in the alcove wearing full ceremonial armor, black and silver, the uniform that made him look less like a man and more like a weapon given form. But his eyes were gentle when they found Nora's. "Ready?" he asked. "No." Honesty seemed appropriate. "But I'll do it anyway." "That's the spirit?" He almost smiled. "For what it's worth, I've seen you handle worse. This is just wolves. Just wolves who might decide I'm lying and tear me apart." "They won't." Rowan's voice carried absolute certainty. "Theron won't allow it, and neither will I." Theron's voice cut through the hall's murmur, amplified by acoustics designed for alpha commands. "My wolves, my pack, my family, I have called you here to witness truth, to acknowledge what has been hidden, to welcome home what was lost 30 years ago." Nora felt her pulse spike. This was it. 30 years ago, I lost my mate, Luna Serafina, pregnant with my children. We believed her dead, killed by rogues. I mourned. I searched. I never stopped hoping. Theron's voice carried decades of grief. I was wrong. She was not dead. She was in hiding, protected by magic, transformed by necessity, surviving so our children could live. Gasps rippled through the crowd, confused murmurs. I present to you Nora Blackwood, daughter of Seraphina, heir to the Northern Territories, carrier of alpha blood through a line you thought ended 3 decades ago. Theron gestured. And with her, my granddaughter, Arya, child of prophecy, inheritor of gifts that mark her as future Luna. The curtain pulled back. Nora stepped into the light, Arya beside her, hundreds of eyes locked on them, predator eyes, assessing, calculating. The silence was crushing. Then a wolf in the front row stepped forward. Female, elderly, her face weathered by decades of pack life. Seraphina wore a locket, wolf's bane pressed in silver. Do you have it? Nora's hand went to her throat, drew out the locket, opened it to show the purple flower preserved inside. The old wolf's eyes filled with tears. Luna, you came home. I'm not Seraphina, Nora said clearly. I don't remember being her. The magic erased that life. I'm Nora Blackwood, combat nurse, widow, mother. But the blood is real, and I'm here because my daughter deserves to know where she comes from. Another wolf spoke, male, young, sharp-featured. How do we know you're not lying? Any human could claim alpha heritage. You don't know, Nora said simply. You have no reason to trust me. I'm a stranger wearing your dead Luna's face. But I'm not asking for trust. I'm asking for time. Time to prove myself. The child, someone called from the back. She has prophetic sight. That's alpha gift. How does human child have that? Arya stepped forward. The 6-year-old, who was really 30, faced down a hall full of wolves without flinching. I'm not human. Not completely. The magic that hid my mother froze me too. I should be 30 years old, but the spell kept me young until the time was right. Her eyes glowed amber, bright and undeniable. I see futures, paths, choices. And I see this pack surviving, thriving, if you're brave enough to accept what magic has returned to you. The glow faded. Arya swayed. Nora caught her, held her close, protective instinct overriding everything else. She's just a child, Nora said, voice harder now. Whatever you think about me, she's innocent. She didn't ask to carry gifts that terrify her as much as they help. She looked at Theron. I came here because winter was killing us. Found out my entire life was a lie because my daughter wandered into a gallery. None of this was planned. But it's real. And if you reject us, we'll leave. But you'll have turned away your heir, your prophet, your future. Silence fell again, weighted with decision. The elderly wolf spoke. I knew Seraphina, loved her as Pac loves Luna. This woman has her face, her bearing, the same stubborn courage. She looked at Theron. I believe her, and I welcome her home. Others stepped forward, one by one. Not all, but enough. Wolves who remembered Seraphina, who valued bloodline, who recognized that gifts like Arya's did not manifest in ordinary humans. But 3 wolves did not step forward, council members who watched with cold calculation, assessing, planning. Theron's next words carried warning wrapped in welcome. My pack has spoken. Nora and Arya are acknowledged, protected. Any who threaten them threatens me directly. Pack law is absolute in this. The assembly ended with formal acceptance. Not universal, not enthusiastic, but real. Nora had been presented. The pack knew what had returned. That night, exhausted from hours of formal introductions and careful political navigation, Nora finally found herself alone in new quarters. The royal wing smelled different from the infirmary. Beeswax and old leather, ancient stone and something Nora could not name, history perhaps, or the weight of power concentrated in walls that had stood for centuries. Her new quarters occupied 3 rooms that could have housed a platoon. Windows overlooked mountains painted silver by moonlight. Furniture that belonged in museums. A bed so large she felt lost in it. Arya had claimed the smaller bedroom with uncharacteristic silence. No excitement over the canopied bed or window seat. Just a quiet acceptance that felt wrong coming from a 6-year-old body housing a 30-year-old soul. Nora had tucked her daughter in, kissed her forehead, and retreated to the main room where she could not sleep. Could not even think of sleeping, because her mind was fragmenting. It had started small. A flash of memory during dinner. Not her memory, someone else's. A younger Theron laughing at something, his face unlined by grief, his eyes warm instead of cold. The memory had felt real, visceral, like recalling her own past, but it was not her past. It was Seraphina's. Then another fragment. Training in a courtyard, the weight of a practice sword, calluses on palms, a female voice teasing about footwork. These were not Nora's memories. Nora had never held a sword, had never trained in combat beyond the hand-to-hand basics the army taught its nurses. But someone had. Someone whose memories were bleeding through whatever spell had turned Luna into nurse. The door opened without warning. Nora spun, her hand automatically reaching for the knife she kept in her boot. Combat reflexes, always there, always ready. Commander Rowan Steele stood in the doorway. He wore casual blacks instead of tactical gear. His hair was damp from a recent shower. In his hands he carried a bottle and 2 glasses. "Figured you couldn't sleep," he said simply. "Neither could I." Nora should have sent him away, should have maintained the professional distance that kept complications at bay. But she was tired. So tired of being alone with thoughts that were not entirely hers. "Is that allowed?" she asked, nodding at the bottle. "Guard commander visiting the maybe Luna in her quarters after midnight?" "Probably not." Rowan entered anyway, closing the door behind him. "But I'm not here as guard commander. I'm here as someone who recognizes shell shock when he sees it." He poured amber liquid into both glasses, offered one to Nora. She took it, sipped. Whiskey. Good whiskey. The kind that burned smooth and warm all the way down. They stood at the window together. Below, guards walked patrol routes. Above, stars blazed cold and distant. The silence stretched comfortable, the kind soldiers shared. No need for words when presence said enough. "How bad is it?" Rowan asked finally. "The memories?" Nora took another sip. "Like watching someone else's life on fast forward. Pieces, fragments, nothing coherent, just flashes that feel real and impossible at the same time." "Does it hurt?" "Yes." She pressed her palm against the glass. The cold helped, grounded her. "It's like my brain is trying to hold 2 lives at once. Nora and Seraphina, combat nurse and Luna, the woman who buried her husband and the woman who apparently loved an alpha king." She looked at him. "I don't know which one is real anymore." Rowan studied her with that intensity he brought to everything. Reading, analyzing. "Both are real. Both are you. Just different versions." "That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's just true." He refilled her glass without being asked. "I've seen this before. Soldiers with traumatic brain injuries. They'd wake up remembering things differently, confusing timelines, mixing memories. The brain is adaptable. It compensates, creates narratives to make sense of gaps. So I'm brain damaged? So you're healing from magical trauma that would have killed most people." Rowan's voice gentled. "Give yourself time. The memories will settle, or they won't. Either way, you're still you." Nora wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe that whatever was happening to her mind would not erase the person she had become. The mother. The survivor. The woman who had earned every skill through blood and sweat and loss. "Tell me about James," Rowan said. The request caught her off guard. "Why?" "Because he's part of your real memories. The ones that made you who you are now. And I want to know that person, not the ghost of a Luna from 30 years ago." Something cracked in Nora's chest. This wolf who owed her nothing was offering her something precious. Validation. Recognition. The acknowledgement that Nora Blackwood mattered regardless of who Seraphina might have been. "James was gentle," she said softly. "Infantry. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Came home different. The kind of different that smiles don't hide." She turned the glass in her hands. "He tried. God, he tried so hard. Went to therapy, took the medications, did everything right. But the war followed him home. It lived in our bedroom, in the silence between words, in the way he'd wake up swinging from nightmares. You loved him anyway." "I loved him because of it. Because he was broken and still tried to be whole. Because he knew he was drowning and still fought to stay afloat for me." The tears came without permission. "The night he died, I was working late shift at the hospital. He called me, said he loved me, said I deserved better. And I knew what he was going to do. But I was 30 minutes away, and he was alone with his demons, and by the time I got home..." Rowan's hand found hers, squeezed once, solid, warm, present. "I failed him," Nora whispered. "I was a nurse. I saved strangers under fire, but I couldn't save my own husband." That wasn't failure. That was war claiming another casualty. Rowan's voice carried the weight of experience. I lost brothers the same way. Good men, strong men. They survived combat but couldn't survive peace. It's not your fault any more than it was mine. Nora looked at their joined hands. When had that happened? When had this professional distance become something warmer, something dangerous? She should pull away. She did not pull away. The mate bond, she said instead, between Serafina and Theron. Is it still there? Can I feel it and not know what it is? Rowan's jaw tightened. I don't know. Mate bonds are complicated, powerful. Some say they transcend memory and magic both. Do you believe that? I believe love comes in many forms, some written in stars, some earned through choice. His thumb traced small circles on her palm. I believe the bond you choose is worth more than the one fate assigns. The implication hung between them, heavy, charged. Nora stepped back, put necessary distance between herself and this wolf who made her feel things she had no right to feel. Not with Theron's grief still fresh, not with Serafina's ghost crowding her mind. This can't happen, she said. I know. You're guard commander. I don't even know what I am. And there's a mate bond, and politics, and 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea. I know, Rowan repeated, but he was smiling, sad but genuine. Doesn't change what I see when I look at you. A warrior, a survivor, someone who thinks tactically and fights fiercely and loves so hard it breaks her. He set down his glass. That's who you are, Nora. Regardless of magic or memory or destiny, that's who I... He stopped. That's who I respect. The word he did not say echoed louder than the one he did. Before Nora could respond, before she could make a mistake or speak a truth that could not be unspoken, Arya's scream tore through the night. They moved as one. Rowan reached the child's bedroom first, Nora half a step behind. Arya thrashed in her bed, eyes wide and glowing amber, her small body rigid with vision. "Dark wolves at the border," she gasped. "Fire from the east. Commander Steele, they're coming through the river approach. 3 will die unless you move 3rd Platoon now. Now!" Rowan already had his radio out. "This is Steele. All units code red. Possible incursion at Eastern River approach. 3rd Platoon redeploy immediately. I want eyes on that position in 2 minutes or less." The radio crackled, voices confirming, moving. Arya's eyes rolled back. She collapsed against the pillows. Nora caught her, cradling her daughter's head. "Baby, I'm here. You're safe." "Mama," Arya's voice was small, frightened. "They're here for us. The dark wolves. They know we're awake now." The alarm started, sharp, urgent, exactly like Arya had predicted. Rowan was already moving. "Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me or the king." He paused at the threshold. "Anyone else tries to enter, you know what to do." Nora nodded. Her hand found the knife in her boot. Combat nurse training included combat. She could protect her daughter, would protect her daughter, with violence if necessary. Rowan left at a run, the door locked behind him, and Nora held Arya and listened to the sounds of war coming to Castle Ashcroft. The battle lasted 3 hours. From their protected quarters, Nora could hear it. Snarls, howls, the crash of bodies, the primal fury of wolves defending territory. Arya stayed pressed against her side, no longer asking questions, just holding on, trusting her mother to keep the monsters at bay. When the door finally opened, Nora had the knife ready. But it was Rowan who entered, blood on his clothes. "Not his own," he said quickly. Exhaustion carved into every line of his face, but also satisfaction, the grim pleasure of a soldier who won the fight. "Report," Nora said, using his language, military precision. 15 rogues. Coordinated attack exactly where your daughter said. We were waiting. Took down 12. 3 escaped." He accepted the water she handed him, drank deep. "We captured 1 alive. He's talking." "What did he say?" "They were hired, paid to test our defenses, to see if the rumors were true." Rowan's eyes found Arya. "Rumors about a prophetic child in the castle, about the lost Luna returning." Nora's blood went cold. "Someone sent them. Someone who knows what we are." "Yes." Rowan pulled out a small device, played a recording. The captured rogue's voice, rough and scared. "Vex sent us. Said there was a prize in the castle. Said whoever brought him the child would be rewarded. The prophetic one. The heir." The recording stopped. Silence fell like a blade. "Vex." Nora tested the name. It meant nothing. "Who is he?" A ghost from the Wolf Wars. The new voice came from the doorway. Theron stood there, also blood-stained, also weary, but his eyes burned with something darker than exhaustion. My former second-in-command, my brother in all but blood, and the wolf who betrayed everything we fought for. He entered slowly, gave Nora space, gave her the respect of approach instead of command. 30 years ago, during the final battle of the Civil War, Vex tried to seize power, claimed I was too weak, too compromised by a human mate. He led a coup, killed good wolves, almost succeeded. What happened? Nora asked. I killed his lieutenants, broke his forces, drove him into exile. Theron's hands clenched. But I let him live, showed mercy because of our history, because he once saved my life. His voice went bitter. That mercy was my mistake. He's been building power in the shadows ever since, waiting, planning. Planning what? Revenge, a second coup, and apparently... Theron looked at Arya. He knows about the prophetic child, knows what her abilities mean, what she represents. Rowan leaned forward. Your Majesty, if Vex knows about the child, he knows about Nora, knows or suspects her true identity. This wasn't just a probe, it was confirmation. I agree. Theron moved to the window. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, pink and gold against gray stone. He'll come again, with more force, better planning. He won't make the same mistake twice. So what do we do? Nora asked. Both men looked at her. In their eyes, she saw the same calculation, the same tactical assessment that came from years of war. We need allies, Rowan said. Other packs, political support. If Vex is moving openly, he's not working alone. But first we need intelligence. Theron's voice carried the weight of decision. We need to know his strength, his location, his timeline. And how do we get that? Nora already knew the answer, could see it forming in their expressions. We have an asset, Theron said quietly. Someone inside Vex's organization. A wolf I planted years ago. Deep cover. Cassius. The name hit like a punch. Council Elder Cassius? The one who plotted to kill Seraphina? The same. Theron's smile was cold. Or so everyone believes. In truth, Cassius discovered the plot, brought the evidence to me too late to stop Seraphina's disappearance. We made a choice. Keep him in position. Let him rise in the conspiracy. Feed them false confidence while he fed me intelligence. For 30 years? Rowan asked. Your Majesty, that's monstrous. Theron finished. I let him stay close to wolves who wanted my mate dead. Let him pretend to share their beliefs, participate in their schemes, all to gather evidence, build a case that would hold under pack law. He looked at Nora. When the time came to act, when Seraphina returned, we'd have everything needed to destroy them completely. Nora processed this, the layers, the long game. So Cassius is loyal. Cassius is useful, Theron corrected. Loyalty is complicated when you've spent 3 decades pretending to be someone you're not, when you've watched atrocities and done nothing to protect your cover. His voice hardened. He has blood on his hands. Wolves died because he couldn't warn me without exposing himself. That debt doesn't wash away regardless of intent. But you trust him? Rowan pressed. I trust that his survival depends on mine. I trust that he wants to end this as much as I do. Theron pulled out a secure phone. And right now, I trust that he has information we need. He made the call, spoke in low tones, ended it quickly. When he looked back at them, his expression was grim. Vex is moving, gathering forces, calling in debts and promises from across the territories. He's building an army. Theron's jaw clenched. Cassius estimates we have 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then they hit us with everything. Can we win? Nora asked. Not defending. Rowan's tactical mind was already working. Castle's defensible, but we'd be under siege, cut off from allies, starved out or overwhelmed eventually. Then we don't defend. Theron looked between them. We attack. Hit Vex's stronghold before he's ready, decapitate his leadership, scatter his forces. That's suicide, Rowan said flatly. His stronghold is fortified, defensible. He'll have superior numbers. He'll have numbers, we'll have surprise, and we'll have Cassius feeding us intelligence on defenses, troop positions, supply lines. Theron's eyes glittered. We'll have a prophetic child who can see threats before they materialize. No, Nora's voice cut through. Absolutely not. Arya is 6 years old. I will not let you turn my daughter into a military asset. She's already an asset. Theron said gently. Vex knows that. That's why he sent rogues. That's why he'll keep coming. The only way to protect her is to eliminate the threat permanently. By using her abilities? By putting her in danger? Nora stepped between Theron and where Arya sat watching. I won't allow it. You don't have a choice. Theron's voice hardened. Like it or not, she's the heir. She has responsibilities, duties. The pack's survival may depend on her gifts. She's a child. She's a 30-year-old woman trapped in a child's body by magic that's breaking down. Theron moved closer, not threatening, pleading. I know this is hard. I know you want to protect her. But sometimes protection means letting them fight, letting them use what makes them special to survive. Nora wanted to argue, wanted to scream that it was not fair, that Arya had already lost 30 years, that childhood was a gift magic had stolen and barely returned. But she had been a soldier, had seen young men and women fight because duty demanded, had watched them bleed and die for causes larger than themselves. If I agree, she said slowly, if I let her help, you promise me she stays behind the lines, safe, protected. She provides intelligence only, no combat, no direct danger. I swear it, Theron said. Rowan nodded agreement. I'll assign my best guards. She doesn't leave their sight. Arya spoke for the first time, her voice small but certain. Mama, I have to help. The Silver Lady says this is why I came back, why the magic broke now instead of years ago. Because you need me, because the pack needs me. Baby, you don't understand what war is. I understand what loss is. Arya's eyes were ancient. I lost 30 years. I lost growing up. I lost the chance to know you as my real mother instead of the person magic made you become. She stood, moved to Nora, took her hands. Let me help. Let me use what I am to protect our family. Our family. Not just Nora and Arya, but Theron, Rowan, the pack, all of it. Nora looked at Theron, saw in his face the same desperate love she felt, the need to protect, the fear of failing. If anything happens to her, it won't. Theron's voice carried absolute conviction. I'll burn the world before I let Vex touch her. And Nora believed him, because whatever else was true, whatever memories were real or false, Theron Ashcroft loved his granddaughter with the fierce devotion of a warrior who had already lost everything once. The next days blurred into planning, war councils, tactical briefings. Cassius fed them intelligence through encrypted channels, Vex's stronghold location, guard rotations, supply depot vulnerabilities, weapon caches, everything needed to plan an assault. Nora found herself pulled into the planning despite having no official role. Her combat medical experience translated. She could read tactical maps, understand casualty projections, design triage protocols for what was coming. Rowan included her without question, valued her input, made space for her expertise. They worked late into the nights, just the two of them sometimes, going over insertion routes, evacuation plans, contingencies for when everything went wrong, because things always went wrong in combat, always. You're good at this, Rowan said one night. They stood over a 3-dimensional terrain model, small flags marking positions, tactical thinking. I had good teachers. Nora adjusted a flag. Combat Support Hospital in Ramadi taught me to think 3 steps ahead, anticipate where casualties would come from, plan for worst case. That why you left nursing? Too many worst cases? Nora's hand stilled. I left because James died, because every patient I saved reminded me of the one I couldn't, because the hospital smelled like gunpowder and grief, and I couldn't breathe anymore. Rowan moved closer. And now, being back in the planning, the preparation, does it help or hurt? Both. She looked up at him. It helps because I'm good at something again, not just surviving, contributing. It hurts because I remember why I learned these skills, the cost of every lesson. The cost doesn't go away, Rowan said quietly, but purpose can make it bearable. Is that what you found, purpose? I found a reason to keep fighting after the wars ended. This pack, these wolves, protecting them gives the scars meaning. His hand covered hers on the table, and lately I've found other reasons. The air between them charged. Dangerous. Nora should step back, should maintain distance, but she was tired of running, tired of hiding from things that felt real. Rowan? I know. His thumb traced her knuckles. I know all the reasons this is complicated. The mate bond, your identity crisis, the politics. But I also know what I see when I look at you. A warrior, an equal, someone who makes me want to be better than I am. I'm not Serafina. I know. That's what I like about you. He smiled. Genuine, warm. She was Luna. You're Nora. And Nora is the one who makes my heart race when she tears apart my tactical plans and builds better ones. Nora laughed despite herself. That's the worst pickup line I've ever heard. Good thing I'm not picking you up then, just stating facts. The moment held, fragile, precious, then shattered when the door opened. Lissa entered. Rowan second. Female wolf with sharp features and sharper instincts. She took in the scene with knowing eyes but said nothing about the proximity. Commander, we've got a problem. Cassius sent an emergency signal. Says he's been compromised. Needs extraction within 24 hours or Vex will discover the leak. Rowan's demeanor shifted instantly. Commander replacing the man who had been flirting. Get me the tactical team. Full gear. We move in 3 hours. Sir, that's not enough time to plan an extraction properly. We don't even have updated intelligence on the stronghold defenses. Then we improvise. Rowan was already moving. Cassius has been in deep cover for 30 years. If he's calling for extraction, he's burned. We don't leave our people behind. Nora followed him into the corridor. You need medical support, someone who can treat field wounds if the extraction goes hot. No, Rowan stopped. Absolutely not. You stay here, stay safe. You need me. I'm the best combat medic you have. You're also the maybe Luna, the mother of the heir. I can't put you in that kind of danger. Since when do I need your permission? Nora crossed her arms. I've operated under fire before. I know the risks, and I'm volunteering. Rowan's jaw clenched. Theron will never approve it. Then don't tell him until we're already gone. They stared at each other, wills clashing. Finally, Rowan made a frustrated sound. You're impossible. I'm necessary, and you know it. Fine, but you stay behind me. You don't engage unless absolutely required, and if I say run, you run. Understood? Understood, Commander. 3 hours later, Nora found herself in tactical blacks, medical packs secured, moving through darkness with a team of wolves who specialized in impossible extractions. Rowan led from the front. Lissa covered the rear. Between them, 10 of the pack's most lethal warriors, and one human nurse who had somehow talked her way into a suicide mission. The approach to Vex's stronghold took 2 hours of hard movement through terrain that would kill the careless or untrained. They crossed ridgelines where one misstep meant a 100-foot fall onto rocks that would shatter bone. Descended through old-growth forest where ancient trees grew so thick that moonlight barely penetrated. Moved through creek beds where cold water soaked through boots and turned feet numb. Nora kept pace. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but combat deployments had taught her how to push through discomfort. How to find rhythm in misery. The wolves moved with supernatural grace, barely breathing hard, but they did not complain about her presence. Rowan had vouched for her. That was enough. They stopped twice for security halts, everyone freezing in place, listening, watching. Rowan using hand signals older than modern warfare, the universal language of soldiers who hunted and were hunted. Nora understood every gesture, not from memory, from experience, from patrols in Kandahar where Taliban fighters knew every rock and shadow. Arya's visions had provided their route, specific waypoints, times when patrols would be elsewhere, windows in sensor coverage that lasted exactly 4 minutes. The child had described it all with unsettling precision, down to which trees to avoid because branches would crack underfoot, which streams to cross because the stones were stable. The prophetic sight was terrifying in its accuracy, and heartbreaking in what it cost. Each vision left Arya exhausted, drained. The child would sleep for hours afterward, wake with nightmares about futures she had prevented or could not change. But she gave them anyway, because duty, because family, because a 30-year-old soul understood sacrifice in ways 6-year-old bodies should never have to comprehend. They reached the perimeter an hour before dawn. The stronghold sprawled across a valley floor like a military installation, which it had been once, old human base from some forgotten conflict. Vex had claimed it, reinforced it, turned it into a fortress that would make conventional assault a bloodbath. Fortified compound, guard towers at each corner with overlapping fields of fire, razor wire in triple rows, concrete barriers funneling approach routes into kill zones, spotlights sweeping patterns. the kind of place designed by someone who understood warfare, who knew how to make attackers bleed for every inch. Getting in would require skill and luck. Getting out with an extraction target would require a miracle. Unless you had inside intelligence, unless Cassius had done his job and left them the gaps they needed. Rowan signaled. The team split. 3 groups, diversionary attacks to pull guards away from the extraction point. Nora stayed with Rowan and Lissa, the primary extraction team. They moved when the explosion started, using chaos as cover. The stronghold's interior was industrial. Concrete, steel, more military base than Wolf Den. Nora approved. Easier to navigate, clearer sight lines. Her tactical mind cataloged everything. Exit routes, cover positions, potential ambush points. They found Cassius in a holding cell, beaten but alive. His eyes widened when he saw them. "You actually came," he rasped. "Did you doubt it?" Rowan was already working on the lock. "I betrayed them. Vex knows. Cassius stopped. His expression shifted to horror. "It's a trap. You need to go. Now." The lights died. Emergency reds activated, and the corridor filled with wolves, dozens of them, led by a male who moved with alpha authority. Scarred, dangerous, eyes that held decades of rage. "Vex, Rowan Steele." The rogue alpha smiled. "Right on time. I told my wolves you were too loyal to leave a man behind, too honorable to think strategically." His eyes found Nora. "And you brought a gift. The nurse who thinks she's Luna. How convenient." Rowan moved to put himself between Vex and Nora. "This doesn't have to end in blood. It ended in blood 30 years ago. This is just collection." Vex gestured. His wolves moved forward. "Kill the commander. Bring me the woman. Theron will trade anything for his mate, even his throne." The corridor erupted into violence. Wolves fought wolves with primal fury, claws and fangs, the wet sound of tearing flesh, screams that were half human, half animal. Blood painted the concrete walls in arterial sprays. The enclosed space amplified everything, made it deafening, disorienting. A meat grinder wrapped in steel and stone. Vex's forces had numbers, 20 against their 10. But Rowan's team had training, discipline. They fought as a unit, covering angles, supporting each other. The kind of coordination that came from years of operating together, from trust built through shared combat. Nora pressed against the wall, trying to stay out of the immediate combat. Her medical pack felt heavy. Useless. She could not treat wounds while the fighting raged. Could only watch. Wait. Catalog injuries for triage later if there was a later. But a rogue spotted her, saw the human, the weakness. He broke from the main combat and lunged, all teeth and fury, moving with speed that should have been impossible. Nora reacted on pure instinct. Her combat knife appeared in her hand. She did not remember drawing it, did not remember learning the movement. But her body knew, muscle memory from another life. She sidestepped his rush with economy of motion, no wasted movement, opened his throat with a backhand slash that severed carotid and windpipe both. The technique was textbook, perfect, deadly. The wolf went down, clawing at the ruin of his neck, drowning in his own blood, dead in seconds. Nora stared at the knife in her hand, at the blood running down the blade. She had killed before, in self-defense during deployments, but never like this, never with such cold efficiency, never with skills she did not remember possessing. Seraphina's training, surfacing through whatever magic separated the two identities, combat techniques Luna had learned fighting beside alpha warriors, knowledge that transcended memory wipes and identity changes, the body remembering what the mind forgot. More rogues came, 3 this time, coordinated, smart enough to recognize the human as easy prey. Nora fought because she had no choice. Her blade found throats, eyes, the soft spots where steel could penetrate even supernatural healing. She moved with grace that felt foreign and familiar simultaneously, dancing through violence with practiced ease. The memories were surfacing faster now, driven by adrenaline and survival necessity. She remembered this, remembered training in castle courtyards. Theron's voice coaching her stance, other wolves teaching her how to fight things stronger and faster than human limits. She remembered being good at it, being deadly, despite lacking their supernatural advantages. The memories hurt, like broken glass cutting through neural tissue, each one bringing clarity and agony in equal measure. Her head pounded, vision doubled. But she could not stop, could not pause, because pausing meant dying. Rowan appeared beside her. Blood painted his face in tribal patterns. His eyes glowed amber with the wolf barely contained. "We need to go. Now." "Cassius?" Nora gasped. Her breath came hard. Combat always looked easier than it was, always demanded more than you thought you could give. Dead. Vex killed him when the fighting started, slit his throat personally. Rowan grabbed her hand. His grip was vice-tight, desperate. "Move!" They ran, back through corridors that seemed longer now, narrower, the walls closing in with claustrophobic pressure. Behind them, wolves died, Rowan's team buying seconds with their lives. The extraction had become a disaster, a calculated slaughter, exactly what Vex had planned from the beginning. They made it to the perimeter when Lissa went down. The shot came from his guard tower, high-caliber rifle, the kind humans used to kill things that would not stay dead otherwise. Silver-tipped round designed to punch through supernatural healing. It caught Lissa center mass, spinning her around, dropping her like a puppet with cut strings. She collapsed in Rowan's arms. Her eyes were wide, shocked, the kind of expression soldiers wore when they realized they were dying. That moment of disbelief before acceptance set in. "No." Rowan pressed his hands against the wound. Blood welled between his fingers. Too much blood. The wrong color. "No. Stay with me. That's an order, soldier." But Nora could see. Medical training showed her the truth in brutal clarity. The round had fragmented on impact. Shrapnel throughout the chest cavity. Organs shredded. Massive internal bleeding. Even immediate surgery in a fully equipped trauma center might not save her, and they were in hostile territory with minutes, maybe seconds, before overwhelming force arrived. Lissa was dead. She just had not stopped breathing yet. "Commander!" Lissa's voice was whisper-thin. Blood bubbled at her lips, punctured lung, drowning internally. "Leave me. Get her out." "I don't leave my people." Rowan's voice cracked, the command authority fracturing, revealing the man beneath, the one who cared too much, who would sacrifice mission success for the lives of those he led. "You leave me or she dies." Lissa's hand gripped his. Her fingers were already going cold, shock setting in. "Sir, please don't let me die for nothing." Rowan's face shattered, grief and rage and helplessness warring across his features. He was a commander, had made hard calls before, knew the mathematics of acceptable loss, but knowing did not make it easier, did not make it hurt less. He leaned down, kissed Lissa's forehead, the gesture achingly gentle. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," Lissa managed to smile. "Was an honor, sir. Tell the pack I died well." "I will." Rowan stood, his movements mechanical, operating on training because emotion would paralyze. He looked at Nora. "Run, now." Nora ran with him. Behind them, Lissa bought them precious seconds. She had dragged herself to better cover, still had her sidearm, started firing at pursuing wolves. Each shot precise despite failing strength, professional to the end, selling her life to save theirs. The sounds of her last stand followed them into darkness. The sharp crack of gunfire, the snarls of wolves closing in. Then silence, heavy and final. They made it back to neutral territory as dawn broke over the mountains, pink and gold light touching snow-capped peaks. Beautiful and indifferent. The world kept turning regardless of who died in the dark. The team had lost 4, including Lissa. Another 3 wounded. The extraction had failed. Cassius was dead, and Vex now knew exactly how far Rowan would go to protect his people. Theron met them at the castle gates, took one look at Rowan's face, and knew. "Lissa? Dead." The word came out broken. Vex was waiting. It was all a setup. Cassius was bait to draw us in. "I'm sorry." Theron gripped Rowan's shoulder, the gesture of one warrior to another, acknowledgement of grief and loss. But Rowan pulled away. "We can't win this. Not conventionally. Vex has too many wolves, too much intelligence. He'll bleed us dry through attrition." He looked at Nora. "Unless we change the game." "How?" Theron asked. "The mate bond." Rowan's eyes held terrible certainty. "If it's real, if it still connects Nora to you, Vex will try to exploit it. He'll use her as leverage, as bait." He turned to Theron. "Unless the bond is already broken. Unless Seraphina severed it before she disappeared." Theron went rigid. "That's impossible. Breaking a mate bond requires—" Ancient magic, forbidden rituals, extreme pain. Father Tobias's voice came from the castle entrance. The old priest carried a leather-bound book, the same magic Seraphina used to erase herself. He opened the book, showed them pages written in Seraphina's hand, diagrams, incantations, detailed instructions for severing the supernatural connection between bonded mates. "She did this?" Theron's voice was hollow. "She broke our bond?" "To protect you." Father Tobias's eyes were sad. "Vex had compromised you, fed you magic that made you vulnerable through the bond. As long as you were connected, Seraphina was a weakness, a target. So she cut the connection, endured pain that should have killed her, all to free you from that vulnerability. And you knew." Theron's eyes blazed. "For 30 years you knew and said nothing." "She made me swear silence, said the bond's absence was her greatest protection. If you knew it was broken, you might have searched differently, might have found her." The priest met the Alpha's fury without flinching. "She chose your safety over your love, made the hardest sacrifice." Theron turned away. His hands shook with suppressed emotion. When he looked back at Nora, she saw devastation. "You're not bound to me, never were. The Seraphina I knew died 30 years ago when she severed the connection." "I'm sorry," Nora whispered. "Don't be." His voice was ice over grief. "You were right. You're not her. You're someone new, someone free." He looked at Rowan. "Which means you're free to choose. No bond, no fate, just choice." The weight of that crashed over Nora. She was not bound, not obligated, not connected by magic to this alpha king who had lost everything. She was simply a woman, a survivor, a mother, making decisions about her own life. She looked at Rowan, saw in his eyes the same realization, the same possibility, but also the same grief. Because Lissa was dead, because the mission had failed, because love in wartime came with costs neither of them was ready to pay. "We need to end this," Rowan said roughly, "before anyone else dies for our mistakes." "Agreed." Theron straightened. Alpha authority replacing personal pain. "Gather the War Council. We plan the final assault. If Vex wants war, we'll give him war." His eyes found Arya, standing small and quiet in the doorway. "And we'll use every advantage we have, no matter how young." The child nodded, solemn, understanding, ready to be the weapon circumstance demanded. And Nora held her daughter and wondered what kind of world required 6-year-olds to fight battles adults had failed to finish. The kind, she realized, that had shaped her, that had forged Seraphina into someone who could break her own soul to save the one she loved. The kind that would break them all before this ended, unless they broke it first. The War Council convened at midnight in the castle's operations center. Not a throne room or ceremonial hall. This was functional space. Maps covered every surface. Communications equipment lined one wall. Tactical displays showed real-time intelligence. The room smelled of coffee and tension, and the particular electricity that preceded combat. Theron stood at the head of the main table. Around him gathered what remained of his command structure. Rowan, grief carved into every line of his face, but functional. 3 pack captains who had survived decades of conflict, Father Tobias with his ancient knowledge, and Nora, who had no official rank but whose tactical mind had earned her a place among warriors. Arya sat in the corner, silent, watchful. Her eyes glowed faintly amber in the dim light. The child who was not a child, the prophet who could see paths through impossible futures. "Intelligence summary," Theron said. His voice carried command authority honed through 40 years of leadership. "What do we know?" Rowan stepped forward. He had not slept since the failed extraction, had not cleaned Lissa's blood from his gear, wore his grief like additional armor. "Vex controls the old military installation 40 kilometers northeast. Satellite imagery shows approximately 200 wolves in residence, mix of rogues, mercenaries, and turncoat pack members." He activated a holographic display. The stronghold appeared in 3 dimensions: walls, towers, buildings, kill zones marked in red. "Conventional assault would cost us 70% casualties minimum. Even if we win, we'd be too weak to defend against opportunistic attacks from neighboring territories. So we don't assault conventionally," one of the captains said. "We siege, starve them out." "No time!" Rowan zoomed the display to show supply convoys. "Vex has enough stores for 6 months. We have 2 weeks before other packs start making moves. Word of our weakness is spreading. If we don't resolve this quickly, we face multiple fronts. Silence fell. The mathematics were brutal. Attack and die, wait and die, no good options. There is another way. Father Tobias moved to the table. His elderly hands trembled as he placed an ancient text beside the tactical displays. Technology and mysticism, side by side. The stronghold was built on ground that holds old magic, power from before the Wolf Wars, before modern territories. The humans who constructed that base chose the location because it felt strong, safe. They did not understand what they were building on. "Get to the point, Father," Theron said. "The magic can be turned against them, used to neutralize their numbers advantage, but it requires specific conditions, a ritual, blood of the Alpha line, and someone who remembers the old ways, someone who was trained in them." His eyes found Nora. "Seraphina knew this magic," the priest continued, "studied it, feared it. She documented everything in journals I've kept hidden for 30 years. She wrote instructions, step by step, how to invoke the old powers, how to bind them to purpose." "What kind of purpose?" Nora asked, her voice steady despite the dread building in her chest. "Protection, compulsion. The magic can make wolves incapable of violence within a defined radius, turn warriors into pacifists for a short time, long enough for a small force to penetrate defenses and neutralize leadership." Rowan leaned forward. "How small a force?" 10, maybe 12. "The magic creates a window, 30 minutes where Vex's army cannot fight, cannot shift, cannot defend." Father Tobias looked at Theron. "But it requires sacrifice, pain. The caster must channel power that will burn through them like wildfire. Even with alpha blood, even with training, the cost is extreme." "How extreme?" Theron's voice had gone quiet. "Dangerous. Seraphina believed it would kill her. That's why she never attempted it. Why she chose exile instead. She feared leaving her children motherless more than she feared the conspirators." Nora felt multiple pairs of eyes turn to her, felt the weight of expectation, the unspoken question. Would she risk what Seraphina had not? Would she sacrifice herself for a pack she barely knew, for wolves who had done nothing to earn her loyalty? "No," Rowan's voice cut through. "Absolutely not. We find another way." "There is no other way." Theron looked at Nora with terrible certainty. "This is why the magic brought you back now. Why the spell broke. You're not here by accident. You're here because this moment requires you, requires what only you can do." "I'm not Seraphina," Nora said. "No, you're stronger." Theron moved around the table. "She was born to this, raised in privilege, trained from childhood. But you? You survived poverty, war, grief that should have destroyed you. You rebuilt yourself from nothing, twice." His hand touched her shoulder. "You're who she became when magic stripped away everything except what mattered. The core, the strength, the will to protect what you love at any cost." "And if the ritual kills me, what happens to Arya?" "I raise her." Theron's eyes blazed. "I teach her, protect her, love her as I should have loved you, as I would have if the world had been different." His voice cracked. "I failed Seraphina. I won't fail her legacy." Arya spoke from her corner, her voice small but certain. "Mama won't die. The Silver Lady showed me. There's pain, lots of pain, but you survive. You both do." Her ancient eyes found Rowan. "All three of you." The implication hung heavy. 3, not 2, Nora, Arya, and Rowan. A family built on choice instead of fate. "I need to think," Nora said. "This is too much, too fast." "We have 12 hours, Theron replied. "Then we commit. Attack or retreat. There is no middle ground." Nora left the war room, walked corridors that were becoming familiar, climbed stairs to the battlements where cold wind carried the scent of pine and distant snow. Below, the castle sprawled. Above, stars blazed with indifferent beauty. She was not alone long. Rowan found her, always, as if some invisible thread connected them, drew them together in moments of crisis and quiet both. "You don't have to do this," he said. "No preamble, just truth." "Don't I?" Nora kept her eyes on the mountains. 200 wolves will die if we assault conventionally. How many are just soldiers following orders? How many joined Vex because they had no better option? How many are like I was 3 months ago, desperate, scared, making impossible choices? That's not your responsibility, isn't it? I have the knowledge, the blood, the ability to change the outcome. What kind of person has that power and chooses not to use it? The kind who values her own life. Rowan turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders, warm despite the cold. The kind who recognizes that martyrdom helps no one, that Arya needs her mother more than the pack needs a weapon. Arya is 30 years old. She spent most of that frozen, waiting. She doesn't need me the way a real 6-year-old would. She does. Rowan's grip tightened. I've watched her with you, seen how she looks at you, like you're her anchor, her proof that love survived the magic. If you die casting this ritual, you prove that love always loses. That sacrifice is the only answer. Is that what you want to teach her? Nora had no response, because he was right, because everything he said made sense. But the alternative was worse. If I don't do this, we attack. Your wolves die. Good soldiers. People who trust you. People like Lyssa who will fight to the last breath because you ask them to. She met his eyes. Can you carry that? More names? More faces? More people you couldn't save? Rowan flinched, the wound too fresh, too raw. I'm sorry, Nora whispered. That was cruel. It was true. He pulled her close. Not romantic, just need. Human connection in the face of impossible choices. I've been a soldier for 40 years, lost count of the people I've buried, the names I whisper before sleep. Lyssa was just the most recent. She won't be the last. They stood together, holding each other against the wind and the weight of command. Two warriors who understood that some battles could not be won, only survived. If I do this, Nora said against his chest, if I cast the ritual and somehow survive, what happens after? After? Us. This. Whatever we are. She pulled back enough to see his face. I'm free of the mate bond, free to choose, but I'm also potentially suicidal and definitely complicated. I come with a prophetic daughter and the ghost of a dead Luna. Not exactly ideal relationship material. Rowan smiled. Actually smiled. I'm a 45-year-old soldier with night terrors and commitment issues. I've spent my entire adult life at war. Don't know how to exist in peace. Can't sleep without weapons in reach. He touched her face. I think we match pretty well, actually. That's the worst relationship sales pitch I've ever heard. Good thing I'm not selling, just stating facts. His thumb brushed her cheek. You're the bravest person I know, the strongest, the one who makes me think maybe surviving all those wars was worth it, if it led me here, to you. Nora kissed him, not gentle, not tentative, hard and desperate and real, tasting like coffee and adrenaline and the particular flavor of choices made under pressure. He responded with equal intensity, pulling her closer, making promises with touch that words could not convey. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Nora made her decision. I'll do the ritual, but on my terms. I study everything first, understand the risks, prepare properly. And you, she poked his chest, you lead the assault team. Get in, neutralize Vex, get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. Come back to me. Yes, ma'am. Rowan kissed her forehead. I'll bring flowers, maybe dinner. We'll pretend to be normal people for an evening. I'd like that. They returned to the war room. Theron looked up as they entered, read their expressions, nodded once. You'll do it. I'll try. Nora moved to the ancient text. But I need time, need to understand what I'm invoking. Father Tobias, you'll help me? Of course, child. Then we have a plan. Theron's voice carried finality. 12 hours to prepare. We move at dawn. Rowan, select your assault team. I want our best, people who can operate under magical constraint. I'll need you, Your Majesty. Rowan activated the tactical display. Vex won't negotiate with anyone less than Alpha. This ends with you and him, one way or another. Agreed. Theron looked at his assembled warriors. We've all lost people to this war. Friends, family. The time for loss is ending. Tomorrow we finish what Vex started 3 decades ago. We protect our pack, our future, and we show the territories that the northern wolves still have teeth. The room erupted in affirmation, howls and declarations, the sound of soldiers committing to battle. Nora watched them and wondered how many would survive to see the next dawn, how many she would kill by succeeding or fail to save by dying. The next 12 hours blurred into preparation that would decide whether they all lived or died. Father Tobias taught Nora the ritual with the patience of someone who had waited 30 years for this moment. Ancient words in languages predating modern speech, syllables that tasted like copper and ozone on her tongue, gestures that channeled power through flesh and bone and blood. The theory was deceptively simple. Draw circle. Light candles at cardinal points. Speak the invocation. Channel alpha bloodline through ancient ley lines to suppress wolf nature in defined radius. The execution was agony. She practiced with small amounts of magic first. Tiny trickles of power pulled from the earth beneath the castle. Even that burned. Felt it burn through her nervous system like acid, like fire ants crawling through her veins. Left her shaking and nauseated and wondering how anyone survived channeling the full force required for 200 wolves. "This will kill me," she gasped after the fourth attempt. Sweat soaked through her shirt despite the cold. Her hands trembled so badly she could not hold the ceremonial chalk steady. Perhaps. Father Tobias's honesty was brutal, unflinching, the kind of truth soldiers needed before combat. Serafina believed so. That's why she never attempted it. She ran instead of risking this. "Then why do you think I'll survive?" "Because Serafina was running from something. You're fighting for something." The priest nodded toward where Arya slept in the corner, exhausted from providing prophetic guidance. She had abstract duty. You have concrete love. She feared leaving her children motherless. You fear failing to protect the child you have. Fear is powerful, but love is stronger. Love makes people survive things that should kill them. Nora looked at her daughter, at the small form curled under a blanket too large, at the child who should be 30 but was frozen at 6, who had lost decades of life because magic tried to protect her, who deserved a future that was more than hiding and running and fear. "Teach me again," Nora said. "Slower this time. I need to understand not just the words but the why, how the power flows, where it comes from, how to direct it without it tearing me apart." They worked through the night, Father Tobias explaining theory while Nora practiced with increasingly larger amounts of power, learning to let it flow through her like water through a pipe instead of fighting it, learning to be conduit instead of container, learning that resistance caused damage. Acceptance created channel. By the 4th hour, she could channel enough to affect a single wolf without collapsing. By the 8th, she could sustain it for a full minute, not nearly enough for what was coming, but progress. Proof that maybe, possibly, she would not die instantly when the full ritual demanded everything. "Your mother knew this magic," Father Tobias said during a rest break. They sat on the cold stone floor, both exhausted. "She studied it for years, feared it, respected it, wrote these instructions knowing someone might need them someday, knowing that the political forces that drove her into hiding might one day threaten her children. She prepared for this moment 30 years ago, left you the tools to survive what she could not risk." "Did she know," Nora asked, "that I would end up here? That this would be required?" "I don't think she knew specifics. But she understood cycles, patterns, that wolves like Vex who lust for power never truly stop. They wait, they plan, they return when they think their enemies have grown weak or complacent." Father Tobias pulled out Serafina's journal, opened to a page written in her elegant hand. She wrote this 2 days before she disappeared. "Listen," he read. "If you are reading this, my daughter, then the threat I fled has found you, has forced you back to the place I worked so hard to help you escape. I am sorry. Sorry I could not end this permanently. Sorry I chose survival over confrontation. Sorry I left you to fight battles I lacked courage to finish. But know this, you are stronger than I ever was, not because of magic or bloodline or training, but because you have known hardship I was sheltered from. You have survived losses that would have destroyed me. You have built strength from nothing while I inherited power I never truly earned. Trust yourself, trust your instincts, and know that even if I cannot be there in body, my love surrounds you always." Nora felt tears prick her eyes. She knew I would have to do this. She knew someone would, hoped it might not be necessary, but prepared you anyway. Father Tobias closed the journal gently. "That's what mothers do. They prepare their children for battles they pray never come, and they leave tools and knowledge and love to sustain them when those battles arrive anyway." Meanwhile, Rowan drilled his assault team. 12 wolves, the best Castle Ashcroft had. They practiced room clearance, close-quarters combat, extraction under fire, over and over until the movements became automatic, until they could operate blind and deaf and still maintain formation. Nora watched when she could, saw the precision, the trust. These wolves would die for each other, had proven it already, and tomorrow they would be asked to do it again. Theron spent the hours in his armory, selecting weapons, ancient blades passed down through generations, silver and steel, each one with history, with names. He armed himself like knights of old, not with guns and modern convenience, but with the tools of personal combat, the kind where you looked into your enemy's eyes as you killed them. "He's preparing for single combat," Father Tobias observed. "He thinks it will come down to him and Vex, one-on-one, the old way." "Will it?" Nora asked. "Probably. Alpha challenges usually do." The priest smiled sadly. "They'll talk first. Vex will offer terms. Theron will refuse. Then they'll try to kill each other. It's very traditional." "That's insane. That's pack law. Some things don't change despite centuries of civilization." 4 hours before dawn, Arya woke from prophetic sleep. Her eyes glowed so bright it hurt to look at them directly. She spoke in a voice that was not quite her own, layered, echoing, as if multiple futures spoke through one small throat. 3 paths, 3 outcomes. One path, Mama dies and Vex wins. Another path, Mama lives but Rowan falls. Third path. She stopped, shuddered. Third path requires perfect timing, perfect sacrifice, and a choice that breaks hearts but saves souls. "What choice?" Theron demanded. "You have to let her go." Arya looked at him with heartbreaking clarity. "Really let her go. Not just words. Not just accepting Seraphina is dead. You have to release the hope, the wish, the dream of what could have been. Only then does the magic recognize Nora as herself. Only then can she channel it without being consumed." Theron went pale. "You're asking me to stop loving her?" "No. You'll always love Seraphina. But you have to stop waiting for her to come back. Stop seeing Nora as a vessel for your lost mate. See her as she is. A daughter you never knew. A different person with different worth." Arya's voice gentled. "The Silver Lady says it's okay. She says she's been at peace for decades, waiting for you to find peace too." Theron sat heavily, the weight of 30 years crashing down. "I don't know how." "Yes, you do." Arya moved to him, placed small hands on his scarred ones. "You let her go the same way she let you go, with love, with gratitude, with the understanding that some stories end so new ones can begin." The Alpha King of the Northern Territories bent his head and wept, great racking sobs that shook his frame. Grief held too long, pain suppressed too deep. He cried for the woman he lost, the children who never grew, the decades spent in half-life. And finally, he cried for the release, the permission to move forward. Nora knelt beside him, this man who was technically her father, who had loved someone she used to be. "I'm sorry I'm not her. I'm sorry I wanted you to be." Theron looked up, his eyes red but clear. "You deserve better. Deserve to be seen for who you are, Nora Blackwood, combat nurse, survivor, mother, warrior, not the ghost of my past. Can you see me that way, truly?" "I can try." He took her hand. "And maybe in time we can build something new. Not the bond I had with Seraphina, but something real between us, if you're willing." "I'm willing." They sat together in the pre-dawn darkness, 3 generations, grandfather, mother, daughter, building family from fragments and faith. When the first light touched the mountains, they moved. The assault team traveled light and fast. Rowan led, Theron beside him, 10 wolves in tactical formation, and Nora carrying the ritual components in a pack that felt far too heavy for what it contained. Candles, chalk, herbs, simple things, but infused with purpose and power. They approached from the north, using terrain that satellite showed but Vex probably dismissed. Too steep, too dangerous. Exactly why it would work. Wolves could navigate what humans could not, could climb sheer faces and cross gaps that would kill normal soldiers. They reached the ritual site 2 hours after departure, a hilltop overlooking the stronghold. Ancient stones marked the place. Power thrummed through the ground. Old magic, wild magic, the kind that predated pack law and civilization both. "This is it," Father Tobias confirmed. He had insisted on coming despite his age. The focal point, where the ley lines converge, where Nora can tap into power vast enough to affect 200 wolves. Nora began setting up, drew circles in chalk, placed candles at cardinal points, crushed herbs released scents that made her eyes water. Each step was precise, exact. One mistake would mean failure. Or worse, explosion. Magical feedback that could kill everyone within 100 meters. "How long do you need?" Rowan asked. 30 minutes to prepare. The actual casting takes 5 minutes. Then you have your window. 30 minutes where their wolves can't fight. 30 minutes to infiltrate, find Vex, neutralize him, and extract. Rowan ran the calculations. Tight but doable. "What if it doesn't work?" one of the assault team asked. "What if the magic fails?" "Then we die." Rowan's voice was matter-of-fact. "But we die fighting, better than slow death by siege." The wolves settled into position, watching, waiting. Below, the stronghold began its morning routine. Guards changed, patrols rotated, normal operations. They had no idea what was coming. Nora worked through the preparation. Each gesture brought memories, Seraphina's memories, training in this exact magic, learning from elder wolves who remembered when humans worshipped them as gods. The knowledge flowed through her, not replacing Nora, augmenting her. Two identities finally merging into something whole. "I remember this," she whispered to Father Tobias. "Not just intellectually. I remember the feeling, the power, how it sang through Seraphina's blood. And now through yours," the priest said. "You're ready." Nora looked at Rowan, memorized his face, the scar through his left eyebrow, the gray at his temples, the eyes that saw her completely. "If this goes wrong—" "It won't." He kissed her, quick and fierce. "You've got this, and I've got you, always." "Promises, Commander." "Damn right." She turned to Theron. The Alpha King watched her with expression she could not quite read. Pride, maybe, or hope. "Take care of her, if I don't make it. Arya, she needs someone who understands what she is." "You'll make it." Theron's certainty was absolute. "And when you do, we'll be waiting. Your family, new and strange and built on ruins, but family nonetheless." Nora positioned herself at the circle's center, felt the magic gathering. Responding to alpha blood and trained will, she began the invocation, words of power, syllables that hurt to speak, each one a key turning locks in reality's structure. The world shifted. Power flooded through her, immense, overwhelming, like holding lightning in cupped hands. It burned through her nervous system, set every nerve ending on fire. She screamed, could not help it. The pain was beyond anything she had endured, beyond what human flesh should survive. But she was not just human, not anymore. Alpha blood, Seraphina's training, Nora's will, all of it combined into something that could channel power that should have killed her instantly. She directed it, focused it, sent it flowing out in waves that swept across the valley, invisible, intangible, but absolute in effect. In the stronghold below, wolves froze. Their animals retreated, forced back into human form and locked there, unable to shift, unable to fight, unable to access the supernatural strength that made them apex predators. They were just humans now, soft, vulnerable, mortal. "Go," Nora gasped through the pain. "Now." Rowan moved. His team flowed down the hill like water, fast and silent. They hit the stronghold's perimeter at a dead run. Guards tried to stop them. Could not. Their wolves were caged. They fought with human strength against wolves who retained their power. It was no contest. The assault team carved through defenses like a blade through silk. Rowan led with brutal efficiency, not cruel, not excessive, just ruthlessly effective. They moved deeper, following intelligence Cassius had died providing, through corridors, past shocked defenders, toward the central command, toward Vex. They found him in what had been the base commander's office, pacing, snarling, clawing at his own skin as if he could tear through to the wolf trapped inside. He saw Theron enter, and his expression cycled through shock, rage, and finally understanding. "Clever," Vex said, his voice rough. "The old magic, Seraphina's specialty. I didn't think anyone remembered it." She remembered. Theron moved forward. Rowan and the team secured the perimeter. She documented it, left instructions. Also, this moment could happen. "So you could kill me? After 30 years, you finally grew the spine to do what should have been done in the war?" "No." Theron stopped just out of reach. "So I could offer what you never gave others. Choice, surrender, face-pack justice, account for your crimes, or fight me now, human to human. No supernatural advantage, just two old soldiers settling accounts." Vex laughed, bitter. "You're giving me a chance to kill you. Why?" "Because mercy is not weakness. Because the cycle of violence ends when someone chooses peace. Because, Theron's voice softened, because we were brothers once, before ambition poisoned you, before power corrupted everything good you were. I want to remember that wolf, not the monster you became. Pretty words. Vex pulled a blade, silver and cruel. But words don't change what I am, what I've done. I tried to take your throne, your mate, your future, and I'd do it again. I know. Theron drew his own weapon, ancient steel. That's why this ends today. They fought, not with supernatural speed or strength, just skill, experience, decades of combat distilled into pure technique, blade work that was art and murder both. They moved through the office, trading strikes, testing defenses, each looking for the opening that would end it. Vex was good, had always been good, fast, creative, willing to fight dirty. He used furniture as weapons, threw objects, did everything possible to create advantage. But Theron was better, not because of superior skill, but because he fought with purpose beyond pride. He fought to protect, to preserve, to end a threat that endangered his pack. That clarity made him unstoppable. The fight lasted 3 minutes, felt like hours, ended when Theron disarmed Vex with a technique older than nations, sent the blade spinning away, put his own weapon to his former brother's throat. "Yield," Theron commanded. "It's over." Vex spat blood. "Never. Kill me or let me go. Those are your only options." "No, there is a third." Theron stepped back, lowered his blade. "Exile. True exile. Beyond pack territories, beyond wolflands, you go so far that we never hear your name again. And if you do return, if you ever threaten my pack, my family, my people," his voice went cold, "there will be no mercy, no trial, just death, quick and final." "You're letting me live?" Vex seemed genuinely shocked. "I'm letting you go. What you do with that gift is your choice." Theron sheathed his blade. "But know this. Seraphina died protecting her children from wolves like you. Nora survived to give those children a future. I will not dishonor either sacrifice by becoming the monster you are. Killing you would be easy. Letting you live with your failure is harder, for both of us." Vex stared, then laughed, wild and broken. "You always were too noble for your own good." He stood slowly, favoring ribs that might be broken. "Fine, exile. I'll take your mercy and hate you for it. But I'm gone. You have my word." "Your word means nothing." Rowan appeared in the doorway. "But we'll escort you to the border anyway. Make sure you actually leave." They secured Vex, bound him with silver chains that burned, began the extraction. The assault team moved back through the stronghold. Faster now. The magic was fading. They could feel it. Nora's power weakening. Soon the enemy wolves would recover their animals, would be dangerous again. They ran, made it to the perimeter when the magic failed completely. Below, in the stronghold, howls erupted, rage and humiliation. 200 wolves recovering their power, discovering their alpha captured, their defenses penetrated, their pride shattered. They would pursue, would come with everything. The assault team could not outrun that, could not fight those numbers, unless Nora had one more trick. She felt the magic collapse, felt the ritual end, but there was power left, residual energy, not enough to cage wolves again, but enough for one final working. She invoked it, shaped it, created a wall of force between the assault team and their pursuers. Invisible but absolute, buying them minutes, precious minutes to escape. The cost was everything she had left. The power ripped through her, tore something fundamental. She felt herself fragmenting, Nora and Seraphina separating completely. Two identities that had merged now pulling apart. One had to survive, one had to die. She chose Nora. Let Seraphina's memories flow away like water. Let the Luna's knowledge and skill and training dissipate. Kept only what mattered, the core, the strength, the will to survive. Seraphina Moonwhisper died on that hilltop, 30 years after her supposed death. Died peacefully this time, willingly, released by the man who loved her and the woman who inherited her life. Nora Blackwood collapsed, but she was breathing, alive, herself, finally, completely, only herself. Rowan reached her first, scooped her up. "I've got you. Stay with me." "Always." The word was barely breath. "Promise. Promise." They made it back to castle territory as the sun reached its peak, exhausted, wounded, but alive. All 12 assault team members, plus Theron, plus one very unconscious Nora. Arya met them at the gates. She had been crying. Tears streaked her small face, but she smiled when she saw her mother breathing. The Silver Lady said goodbye. She said thank you, and she said... The child's voice broke. She said she's proud of you. Both of you. Theron knelt before his granddaughter. I saw her too, at the end, just for a moment. She was smiling, at peace, finally free. Are you free, Grandpa? I'm getting there, little wolf. He touched her cheek. Thanks to you, and your mother, and the understanding that love means letting go. They carried Nora to the infirmary, the place where she had worked for 3 months, where she had saved lives and hidden from her past. Now she lay on the table as the patient. Father Tobias examined her with practiced skill, checked vitals, monitored breathing, finally pronounced her stable. She'll live, he said. The magic burned through her reserves, but nothing permanent. She needs rest, healing, time to recover both physically and mentally. And the memories? Theron asked. Seraphina's knowledge? Gone. Willingly released. Nora chose who she wanted to be, and it was herself, not the Luna, just a woman who survived impossible circumstances through strength and will. Rowan stayed at her bedside, held her hand through the hours of fevered sleep, whispered promises, made plans, built futures from hope and determination. When Nora finally woke 3 days later, the first face she saw was his. Hey, he said softly, welcome back. Did we win? We won. Vex is exiled, his army scattered. The territories are acknowledging our strength again. You saved us all. Good. She tried to sit up, failed. Everything hurt. Arya? Healthy, safe, driving Theron crazy with questions about pack history. Rowan helped her drink water. She wants to know everything, the good, the bad, all of it. And you? How are you? Better, worse, processing. He set down the cup. Lissa's funeral was yesterday, full honors. The pack mourned her properly. I'm sorry I wasn't there. You were fighting to survive. She would understand. Rowan took Nora's hand again. I spoke with Theron, told him my intentions regarding you, us. Oh, and what are your intentions, Commander? Highly improper ones. He smiled. Genuine warmth. I intend to court you, properly, with flowers and dinners and awkward conversations. I intend to make you laugh, make you feel safe, make you understand that you deserve good things. That's very presumptuous. Is it working? Maybe. Nora squeezed his hand. But I'm complicated, damaged. I have nightmares and trust issues and a daughter who can see the future. I have night terrors and emotional walls and a job that might get me killed. Rowan leaned closer. Sounds like we're perfect for each other. When you put it that way, he kissed her. Gentle this time. No desperation, just promise. The kiss of a man who had found something worth fighting for beyond duty and honor. 6 months later, Castle Ashcroft celebrated a wedding. Not grand, not royal. Simple ceremony in the castle gardens. Pack members gathered, friends, family. The strange collection of souls who had survived war and found peace. Nora wore a dress that was not white, blue like midnight, simple and elegant, her hair loose around her shoulders. No crown, no ceremonial regalia, just a woman choosing her partner. Rowan stood waiting in dress uniform. No longer just commander, Nora's mate by choice if not supernatural bond. His second in command, a young wolf named Marcus, served as best man. Arya was flower girl, solemn and careful, taking her duties seriously. Theron walked Nora down the aisle. Not as Alpha King, as family, the grandfather who had learned to see her for who she was, who had released his grief and found new purpose in mentoring his granddaughter, in building bridges between human and wolf communities, in being the leader his pack deserved instead of the ghost of a tragic past. The ceremony was traditional wolf bonding blended with human elements. Father Tobias officiated, speaking of choice and courage, of love that survived war and loss and impossible odds. Marriage is not destiny, the old priest said, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. It is decision, made daily, made in small moments and grand gestures, made when it is easy and when it is hard. These two have already proven their commitment, through battle, through sacrifice, through choosing each other despite every reason to walk away. He turned to Rowan. Commander Steele, do you take this woman as your partner, your equal, your chosen family? Will you stand beside her in war and peace, in sickness and health, in joy and grief? Will you honor her choices even when they terrify you? Will you love her not because fate demands, but because your heart chooses? Rowan's voice was steady, clear. I will, with everything I am. And you, Nora Blackwood, do you take this man as your partner, your equal, your chosen family? Will you stand beside him through nightmares and healing, through duty and rest, through fear and hope? Will you let him carry some of your burdens? Will you love him not because magic binds, but because your soul recognizes its match? Nora's eyes never left Rowan's. I will, completely. Then by the authority of pack law and human tradition both, I declare you bonded, mated by choice, married by love. May your days be long and your nights peaceful. May your children thrive and your pack prosper. May you never forget that you chose each other, and may that choice sustain you through everything to come. When Rowan kissed his bride, the pack howled approval. The sound built, grew, became a wave of affirmation that washed over the gardens. Even the humans joined in, voices raised in celebration. The sound echoed across mountains and valleys, declaration and joy and promise all woven together. At the reception, Theron raised a glass. His eyes held warmth Nora had not seen before. The Alpha King learning to live instead of merely survive. To Nora and Rowan, to choosing your own path, to building family from fragments, to having the courage to love despite knowing loss. His eyes found Nora's, and to Seraphina, who gave us all the gift of her sacrifice, who lives on in the daughter she saved and the granddaughter she protected. May her memory be a blessing. To Seraphina, the pack echoed. Nora felt tears prick her eyes, not grief, gratitude, for the woman who had been, for the life she had saved, for the future she had made possible. That night, as celebration continued below, Nora stood on the battlements with Rowan. Below, wolves danced. Above, stars blazed. The world continued turning, beautiful and indifferent. No regrets? Rowan asked, his arm around her waist. About marrying you? None. About losing Seraphina's memories, the knowledge, the skills. Nora considered. Sometimes I wonder what she knew, what I've forgotten. But no, I don't regret it. Those memories weren't mine. That life wasn't mine. This is. She turned in his arms. You, Arya, Theron, the pack, family I chose, identity I claimed. That's worth more than borrowed knowledge. Good answer. They stood together, two survivors, two warriors, building peace from the wreckage of war. In her room, Arya slept, already growing. The magic that had frozen her finally broken. She dreamed of futures where she would age naturally, where she would learn and love and lead when the time came, where she would honor both her mother's sacrifice and her grandfather's second chance. In his chambers, Theron held Seraphina's locket one final time. Thank you, he whispered, for everything, for loving me enough to let me go. He placed it on the altar he had built, final offering, then extinguished the eternal candles and lit 3 new ones, one for Nora, one for Arya, one for Rowan, the new family, the future. Tomorrow he would train with his granddaughter, share lunch with Nora and Rowan, be the grandfather magic had finally given him. But tonight he would sleep deeply, without nightmares, without grief consuming him, a man who had finally made peace with the past by choosing to live fully in the present. The Northern Territories were at peace. The pack had survived, had evolved, had learned that strength came in many forms and that family was built through choice as much as blood. Dawn came to Castle Ashcroft. The guards changed, training resumed, life continued. And in the mountains beyond, a lone wolf ran toward exile. Vex, keeping his word. He would return someday, perhaps. But when he did, they would be ready, 3 generations strong, united, prepared. Home was not walls or territory or bloodline. Home was the choice to protect, to nurture, to build something worth defending with everything you had. And in the Northern Territories, under Theron's wise rule, and Rowan's steady protection, and Nora's healing touch, and Arya's guiding visions, home thrived. Imperfect, complicated, real, exactly as it should be. The end.